This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. I'm delighted to be joined here on the phone by Mauricio Sulaiman, the president of the WBC. Mauricio, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm doing great here in Mexico City right now.
Great, fantastic. I'm just going to get straight down to business, Mauricio. Recently we've been greeted with the news that the WBC have ordered Dillian Whyte versus Dominic Breazeale for the WBC Interim heavyweight title. Just tell me a little bit about the process of that fight being made.
Sure. The WBC, as you know, we have a rule which is a situation regarding the mandatory contender and the mandatory defenses by each champion, which has to be once per year. When Wilder fought Steven in that same card, Breazeale won the final elimination bout, became mandatory challenger. Throughout last year, in 2018, the WBC had as a priority to try its best efforts to have Wilder Joshua become a reality. And for several months, there was ongoing negotiation for that fight, and Breazeale accepted the fact that the WBC would support such fight. At the end of the year, it did not come to fruition, and Wilder was scheduled to fight Fury. And the WBC supported that, same as Breazeale. It was such a great contest, with bringing great attention to the heavyweight division. So the WBC, again, got the support from Breazeale to have a rematch. In order to keep the division active, in order to keep the rights of Breazeale as mandatory contender, and because the champion is busy on another commitment, the WBC ordered an interim championship to give activity to the mandatory contender and the highest ranked fighter, who is Dillian Whyte, who is the WBC silver champion and has been very active and has expressed countless times that his only dream is to capture the green belt.
Why, if you don't mind me asking, is there a need for an interim title? Usually an interim belt is reserved for if a fighter, a champion is injured or having a foreseeable break from the ring. It's not generally considered to be the proper thing if a fighter is merely tied up. Why did Dillian Whyte and Dominic Breazeale need to fight for an interim title?
The fact is that when the champion is not available to fulfill the mandatory obligation, it is most of the time due to medical reasons or an injury, but we also have the provision for contractual reasons or for sports reasons. As I explained, it is not the fault of Breazeale or Dillian Whyte that Wilder has been active fighting very important fights, like if it was Ortiz or Tyson Fury. The public wants to see a rematch, so the WBC supported a rematch. This is good for the sport, and we are giving both Breazeale and Whyte the opportunity to contest for an interim championship to eventually fight for the WBC full championship. We view this as an exemption. We don't do this in every division. We only do it when there is reason that we find to give activity to the division and to the fighters that have been waiting for a prolonged period of time.
Okay, well, we'll come on to Wilder Fury 2 or potentially the Wilder Fury rematch in a moment. Just final word on Dominic Breazeale versus Dillian Whyte. Does the winner of that fight absolutely have to fight for the full version of the WBC title in their next fight?
You know, I never speculate. And it would be irresponsible to give a response like this the rule says that the interim champion fights the champion. There is always possibility of even the interim champion wanting to have another fight. So the interim champion becomes the mandatory contender of the division, and when there's an interim champion, we wait until there's an interim champion, and then when the champion has also had his commitment fulfilled, then that's when we proceed with the ordering the fight.
I've just been to a press conference today, Mauricio, where Tyson Fury and Frank Warren revealed that Tyson Fury is now co-promoted by Top Rank and has an exclusive deal with ESPN+. Now, in a lot of people's eyes, that throws up quite the obstacle from a television broadcast perspective of making Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury 2. Do you see that?
Well, I am not certain. The WBC, in difference with other sports, the organization is not involved in the business side of the sport. We're involved in the medical and the administration and everything that has to do with the running of the sport by itself. Of course, the negotiations that were ongoing throughout January and this part of February were communicated to the WBC by both sides that everything was moving smoothly in good faith negotiations between the parties, and that's why both requested additional time to finalize the agreement. Today news, of course, comes as a new player that could interfere with those negotiations, but that is up to the parties. I'm going to contact them today to understand the status of the negotiations that they have been communicating to the WBC, and then assess the situation regarding this matter.
What is the latest on the negotiations as you understand it? I appreciate you've got to make the phone call today, but what was the last you heard with regards to negotiations for Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury?
The last communication I had was Friday. So today, starting the day, was news. So we're going to go through the protocol and have the communications with both sides and understand what is the position of both. And then I will inform the WBC Board of Governors of the specific situation and then move on with whatever has to be done.
What would happen in the event of, if that fight doesn't happen, now it's been ordered by the WBC, what would then happen? Would Deontay Wilder have to relinquish his title? Would he then have to fight either one of Dominic Breazeale or Dillian Whyte? What would happen if, for whatever reason, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury cannot come to terms? Would the purse bid still be called?
No, I mean, if it all depends. Maybe one of the fighters withdraws. As I mentioned before, I do not like to speculate because any comment that I do could be considered as a official position. The WBC is clear. We are waiting for them to come into agreement. If they do not reach an agreement, then we have to understand if both fighters are willing to take the fight or not. Then we have to rule according to the specific of what is today. So anything that I say could be misinterpreted. What I'm going to do, I'm going to contact both sides and then have the specific position of both in order to continue with the WBC administration of the heavyweight division.
I appreciate that. Final word on potential Wilder-Fury rematch. Would the winner of that fight, in your opinion, would they be, obviously they'd have a mandatory challenger, but would you be willing to, in future, grant an exemption for them to potentially unify the division against the winner of Anthony Joshua versus Jarrell Miller?
That's a possibility. As I say, and I repeat once again, I do not speculate. The rules are clear, and the exemptions to the rules are clear. And the world has been waiting for a great fight between the champions which we are supporting as well. But at this time, we're concentrating in the two fights that the WBC has control. The rematch between Wilder and Fury, and the WBC Interim Championship between Breazeale and Whyte.
I understand that. With regards to Anthony Joshua, now I know that you've been on record in the past and said that you would like Anthony Joshua to fight for the WBC World title. You've just mentioned the fact that you'd like an undisputed bout between the champions. Why is Anthony Joshua not ranked in the WBC? He's not ranked in your top 15.
It is very simple, because the champions of the other organizations are positioned in the WBC rankings, and they are mentioned as champions. Why champions of other organizations are not ranked in the WBC? It is simple, because the champions have commitments with their other organizations, and the WBC rankings are specifically for the fighters that are in position to compete for the WBC title. When they have a commitment to take another opportunity, then they are listed in the not available section, but the champions themselves are listed in the rankings as champions of the organization. Joshua was ranked number 2 by the WBC when he received the opportunity to fight Martin for the IBF title. But we have been very close to him, to his career. We were the first organization to rank him, in the top 10, in the top 5, and I have only good things to say about Anthony Joshua.
Just leads me on to my next question. Jerome Miller. Now, Jerome Miller was ranked by the WBC. He then was...
We're very close to the time. I hope...
Yeah, this is the final question, Mauricio. Jarrell Miller was ranked with the WBC. He was then removed from the rankings due to not complying with the WBC clean boxing program. Can you confirm whether or not he is indeed, if you're willing to rank him, has he joined up by the WBC clean boxing program as it stands?
Yes, he was contacted in 2 separate occasions, and he did not enroll in the clean boxing program for whatever reason. So our guidelines, our rules say that we cannot rank a fighter who is not enrolled, and that is what happened with Miller.